Now, for the media and the Democrat race baiters out there, Portland is 73% white, 9.4% Hispanic, and 6.1% black. So here we have, do we have this Michael Steele again, Mr. Producer? Go ahead and play that.
It's not the case in Portland. It's certainly not the case in Chicago. And what the president is doing is stoking a law and order meme to appease not those folks, but to appease those white citizens who look at these places, these largely black and brown cities, these urban centers, and says, oh, my God, we've got to do something, Mr. President. And he's like, I'm here to the rescue.
Now, this guy obviously has demonstrated that he's as dumb as a doorknob. But in Portland, 73% white, 9.4% Hispanic, 6.1% black. Now in Chicago, where they're dealing with different type of violence, almost 100% of the murder taking place in Chicago, which is massive, which is like a war zone in terms of its numbers, its casualties, is black on black crime. He's not appeasing white citizens by trying to do something about black on black crime, you putz. He's trying to protect American citizens. But it doesn't meet Michael Steele's narrative, or the narrative day in and day out, 24/7 on MSNBC or on CNN. If Barack Milhouse Benito Obama had said, this is enough, I'm going to send in troops, he'd be applauded. If he said we need to ramp up federal law enforcement to protect the federal courthouse, he wouldn't get any complaints from Republicans or conservatives or white people, you jerk. Does he sound compassionate to you? Does he sound like Black Lives Matter to you? In fact, does anyone on MSNBC or CNN sound like Black Lives Matter? Not the group, human beings. How about these mayors? Do they sound like Black Lives Matter? When they're taking the casualties? Sick. This is why Leo Terrell and so many others have flipped. That's enough with the Democrats. That's enough with the left. I see what they've done. I see what they're doing. I see how they use black people. I see how they use Hispanic people. I'm out. I'm out. Count me out. I'm going Republican and I'm voting for Trump because that's your only alternative. That's it. The reason Nancy Pelosi calls our brave patriots stormtroopers is because none of her family members have ever been in law enforcement. None of her close family members. None of her close family members have been in the military. She and her slob of a husband and her 412 kids have milked this country for everything it's worth. They become famous. They become enormously wealthy. They have multiple estates. They have a vineyard. She's treated like a queen, the way she's protected on Capitol Hill, full-time protection, private jets, military jets. The Speaker of the House, everybody bows to her as she walks by. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker. And yet she's a disgusting lowlife. And if she can call our brave men and women who put their lives on the line to fight these Marxist bastards, if she dares to call them stormtroopers Nazis, she can go to hell. And so can that clown, that boy man, Chuck Schumer. By the way, who wears the pants in that relationship? Schumer or Pelosi? Have you noticed that, Mr. Producer? He kind of shuffles behind her. Yes, Nancy. Yes, Nancy. Yes. Good job, New York. By the way, those who are keeping racial count as they do on the left, our third biggest city, Chicago, is 49.4% white, 30.1% black. I thought I would point that out. I want to play this again because during the break, I was thinking about this last part from Michael Steele again. Go ahead.
It's certainly not the case in Chicago. And what the president is doing is stoking a law and order meme to appease not those folks, but to appease those white citizens who look at these places, these largely black and brown cities, these urban centers, and says, oh, my God, we've got to do something. Mr. President.
Okay.
And he's like,
here's what I want to say. Sometime in the last several years, we've reached a point where you can say anything about white people. In this category, I don't even like. There's a lot of people that's thrown in as white people. Okay, but let's do this. You can say anything you want about white people. Anything. The most horrific thing, white privilege, that they're systemically racist, that racism is in their DNA, that they don't work hard, they're privileged. Anything they get, they owe to other people. You can say anything you want about white people. Anything. Particularly if you're in the media, particularly if you're a liberal, whatever your race, and particularly if you're a minority. You can say anything you want about white people. As grotesque and dishonest and racist as it is, it doesn't matter. And you can see it all day long on MSNBC, on CNN, perhaps even in your workplace. Now, if you say anything that you don't even think is offensive involving black people, brown people, red people, yellow, whatever, you could be destroyed. Absolutely destroyed. If you spoke of black people or Hispanic people or other people the way that white people are talked about, you'd be called a bigot and a racist, and you'd be ruined. Now, this is an intolerable situation. Putting down other human beings, and Charles Barkley was talking about this, and he was right on. Putting down other human beings doesn't improve your lot. You know better than those Confederate general monuments that you're pulling down. Nancy Pelosi wants to expunge from Capitol Hill any remnants of the Confederacy, except her own party and the Russell Senate office building. But okay, that's a whole other thing, racist and so forth. And yet she'll use the most outrageous language. And she's not alone. You heard Michael Steele. And he's not alone. It's every day. And we're told that's okay. You can have relatively new immigrants into this country, like Omar, who's a Muslim, say the most grotesque and hateful thing about Jews, and the Democrat Party endorses her. Bernie Sanders, Nancy Pelosi, their funding wing, endorse her in a 4 or 5-way Democrat primary. She doesn't have to pay any price for what comes out of her mouth. Or Tlaib. She's Palestinian. Her parents come from the Middle East. Says the most horrendous thing about Jews. That's okay. It's Tlaib. No big deal. That's okay. Look at Joe Biden. Joe Biden has said the most bigoted things throughout his long, useless, unproductive, bureaucratic career about minorities and particularly black people. And he's running around the last 48 hours calling the president a racist. Why? You want to know why? Because of that poll I talked about with you the other day that shows Donald Trump making a little bit of progress more than prior Republicans in terms of black Democrat support. And it only takes a few points. It only takes a few points. So we need to think about where these elitists, these people in power, whether they control the media, whether they control sports, whether they control entertainment in Hollywood, these political parties, and particularly the media, where are they taking us here? And now they're talking about martial law. They point to the clearing out of Lafayette Park, where you had Marxist anarchists pulling down statues in Lafayette Park right across from the White House, damaging the old St. John's Church and doing much more damage that they haven't shown you on TV. And they claim it was done to clear it out so Trump could have a photo up. That's not why it was done. The park police said exactly why it was done. The Attorney General has explained why it's done. And they were even threatening to rush the White House. And so all of a sudden, all these mostly peaceful protesters, they're the victims. They're the victims. That's Marty, our dog, in the background. The thunder and so forth is bouncing around, so he gets very scared about it. He doesn't have his buddy Barney around to help him. So anyway, I'm talking about the kind of language that's being used. And nobody's condemned for it. Nobody. Nobody's condemned for it. All right. Now, part of the problem also is... What? That's Marty warning me that there's thunder. Hold on for 3 seconds. Hold on. What is it? Go. Okay. All right, I'm coming. Live and national, baby. That's how we roll. Marty doesn't like the thunder. He's 13 and a half. He's a wonderful dog. His little buddy's not with him. Barney was not worried about the thunder and the lightning, but Marty is. Okay. And then in addition to what I was just discussing, we have this from the Cato Institute and the YouGov National Survey. The Daily Caller, walking on eggshells. 62% of Americans are afraid to express political views, survey finds. Now, let me just say this. You go out in public and you wear a MAGA hat, or anything that looks like a MAGA hat, particularly the closer you move to a city, the closer you're traveling to a city, you take your life in your own hands. That's new to America, isn't it? I can remember when the ACLU was defending the Nazis in Skokie. And they won their legal case, and they'd march right down the street. So it's not just the Confederate flag. It's not just the Confederates. If you dare to wear a MAGA hat and show your support for the Republican president of the United States, you are very likely to be physically assaulted. If you wear a Biden hat, I've never seen a Biden hat, but if you wear a Biden hat, nobody's going to bother you. Self-censorship, they say, is on the rise according to a new Cato Institute survey, and they report nearly two-thirds of Americans are afraid to share their political views. A new Cato Institute YouGov national survey found 62% of Americans say the political climate today prevents them from saying what they believe. This is now let's just slow down. Some Americans are obviously afraid to express their political views. The truth is the left is not afraid in the least. I haven't even seen the rest of this survey yet. I'm going to go through it with you. As I just discussed, I used to watch ESPN. I don't watch it at all anymore. I don't want to watch it anymore. There's no point. 31% of liberals, 30% of moderates, 34% of conservatives are worried their political views would get them fired or harm their career trajectory, the Cato Institute and their survey said. I don't know why liberals or moderates are worried. They have nothing to fear. Have you ever heard of people been having their this culture cancel culture? Have you ever heard of them having their careers canceled because they're liberals? Have you, Mr. Producer? I haven't. Or they're moderates? There have been shifts across the board where more people among all political groups, they write, feel they are walking on eggshells. Cato Institute survey found, adding majorities of Democrats 52%, independents 59%, and Republicans 77%, who all agree they have political opinions they're afraid to share. Now, this is why people are talking about the silent majority. When you have a large majority of Republicans and a significant majority of independents who are afraid to express their political viewpoints. In America, you wear a MAGA hat, you could be harmed. You voice your opinion for the Constitution and so forth, you can be destroyed. And by the way, look, it goes beyond that. Look at the Hasidic Jews in Brooklyn who are punished, who are beaten, who are abused, with no support from the mayor. Most of the perpetrators are from the African American community. You don't hear civil rights leaders speaking out. Nobody speaks out. Nobody cares. As I pointed out in the Fairfax area of Los Angeles. We had Rabbi Berg on the program. I had other rabbis tell me it was like a pogrom, with 1/3 of the synagogues being vandalized or desecrated. They're having graffiti, the swastika. You didn't see reports on this. A majority of centrist liberals who in 2017 said they could express their views freely now say they have to self-censor. Well, liberals are hardly the silent majority. Their paramilitary wing is in the streets every night. Every night. And the stormtroopers, federal law enforcement, are trying to protect a federal courthouse. Do you think if Nancy Pelosi's house was being firebombed and bombarded, and if you think people marched into their vineyard and up to their estate and were threatening them and their family and their dog and her $25,000 refrigerators and her ice cream, do you think that she would think this is peaceful? Of course not. Or do you think if these people marched on the Scarborough estate in Jupiter, Florida, do you think they'd think this is fine, mostly peaceful? Of course not. They just haven't been touched by this yet. Notice the mayors who are, whether in Seattle or Oakland, they have to catch their breath after people are threatening them and writing graffiti on their driveway and shooting pellets or whatever it is at their house. You know what they used to say? A liberal is a conservative who hasn't been mugged yet. Something to that effect. Isn't that true, Mr. Producer? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.